Good morning. I'm gonna hold up the handouts for everybody, just to make sure you have everything while we're waiting on just a few more folks. The first one is a brochure, and, we only printed a small amount of those, just to make absolutely sure we weren't gonna make any changes Friday when we had one of our last meetings. Then we also have, I'm sure this is probably on a piece of paper. This is the handout or the brochure from Resident Pilgrimage, which is the group that we are using to travel alongside of. And we'll tell you a little bit about Eric and Heather and their group in just a bit. We have the draft of the itineraries on a handout, and the larger picture itinerary is in the brochure. This particular one has the dates and where we're going each day, and then the other pieces that you have are just sample items from some of the pieces that we will be speaking about, learning about, experiencing. So pilgrimage, Presbyterian Reformed theology, Celtic spirituality, those are all pieces, those are just samples of pieces that we will enjoy together. You know, everybody want all those. And then we were asking folks to sign in back there. If you're present today, we'll also have another meeting next Sunday, and that one will be after worship at 12:15. If you know folks who are interested, people could Zoom. We have a few folks on Zoom now, so you can Zoom this meeting. You can Zoom next Sunday's meeting. We're also recording those meetings, so if there are folks who can't Zoom or be in person, we'll send them a recording. And then we'll also have more of the brochures starting on Monday, so folks can learn about that too. Yes, good point. So next week's meeting is identical to today. Just the information for folks who couldn't come this Sunday at this particular time. Next Sunday is right after worship. Ready to get started? Start with a pilgrim's prayer. This is from a Celtic blessing, so I invite you to pray with me. God bless the path on which we go. God bless the earth beneath our feet. God bless our destination. God be a smooth way before us, a guiding star, a keen eye, this day, this night, and forever. God be with us wherever we pass. Jesus be with us wherever we climb. Spirit be with us wherever we stay. God be with us at each stop and each seat, at each lying down and rising up, in the trough of the waves, on the crest of the billows, each step of the journey we take. Amen. Okay. So before we begin, I want to introduce the discernment team from adult formation that's been part of discerning our way forward about where we were hoping to go and what this particular pilgrimage may look like. So Tom and Kate Gillespie are part of the team. Mary Eagle, Rachel Fitch also joined us next Sunday, but not, I'm putting on the screen because she'll be on Zoom, is Victoria Alexander. Victoria and Rachel were young adult volunteers in Scotland, which is a program through the Presbyterian Church. And we'll get to explore part of that program when we're in Scotland. So they've been invaluable in helping us to plan this trip and being a part of that process. So we're grateful for all of these folks, and each of us will be part of the presentation today. So we're going to start by thinking about what a pilgrimage is. Make sure I can tap the screen. we'll do this while I keep going. We'll figure out what's going on. It worked. So different from a tour, different from a mission trip, the experience that we will be a part of is a pilgrimage. And the way that we think about pilgrimage, it doesn't have to be across the waters. A pilgrimage can be in your own community, but it reflects the idea of a spiritual journey. We're all pilgrims along the path. And so it's a much more symbolic idea of what it means to pilgrim together as Christians on a journey. And so our hope is that in doing that, we will draw closer to God and we'll draw closer to one another. So you'll see reflected throughout the presentation today ideas of some of this connection between our spiritual journey and where we'll go and what we'll see. We also had an opportunity to reflect together as a group around pilgrimage and where we may actually take this journey. And you'll hear a little bit more about how we discern that and how we felt like that God was calling us to Scotland and these particular areas today. And Lisa Cook just walked in, and I'm going to invite Lisa to come up. Lisa was part of a spiritual pilgrimage to Scotland a number of years ago through a young adult experience, and she's going to share a little bit about her journey. Sorry, put you on the spot.
Right into it. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Sorry that I'm a little winded. So I'm speaking on behalf of Tim and I. He's doing yard work right now. Sorry, it's a nice day. Got to do yard work on a nice day. So we had the pleasure of going to Iona with a bunch of young adults back in 2010. So this was a connection with Presbyterian Campus Ministries over at UNCG, and Peter Hazelrig was the minister for UPERC, is what is now referred to as, at the time. And at the time, FBC had Pathfinders, that rings the bell for anybody, that Dolly Jacobs was leading. And there was maybe 2 of us that were under 30 at the time. And Tim was singing in the choir. I remember it was during the first wave study. Anybody remember the first wave study? Way back when? Yes. So those of you that remember, we also connected with Ginger Booker at the time. And she's the one who sort of heard the adults at the time saying, like, hey, we're trying to build community here at FPC, but we're really, struggling to find people our age. And Ginger connected us to Peter. And Peter took Tim and I to lunch at Smith Diner. Do you remember Smith Diner? We're just going to have a nostalgia of 15 years ago with a bagel biscuit. So over a bagel biscuit, Peter sold Tim and I on the opportunity to travel to Scotland for a couple of weeks with a few young adults from FPC and then several members of Presbyterian Campus Ministries at UNCG. So from about the fall of 2009 to the spring of 2010, we did a monthly Bible study. We did a book study together, and there was about 15 of us. So Tim and I, and then if you remember Tyler Hollis from 15 years ago, he's now on baby 2, just so everyone knows, a little life update for him. We were sponsored by FPC. Thank you to many generous members of the choir and the youth group and pretty much anyone that we could go, hi, we're 24 trying to travel across the Atlantic Ocean. Would you like to help? And so we went over and we flew into Glasgow and we then trained up to Oban, spent a day in Oban with some of the church members there. And Oban is the sweetest little, I don't know, have you ever been to Oban? It's just the cutest little town that we all were sleep deprived and got to spend the day in. But it was lovely to meet with some members who went to the church there and really get to experience Scottish culture. Is Oban a stop that they would make?
Yes, to go to
It's a stop that people make, and it is well worth it. Get the strip sandwich. But there's so many historical, really beautiful moments. And that was the first time Tim and I traveled internationally, to Europe. And it was really remarkable to stand in places that are so much older than anywhere we can go in the US, and to really understand like what was happening, what was starting to happen, sort of for the Protestants at this time. Tim did try to play the bagpipes at someone's house. They're a lot harder than you think they are. And a whole bunch of boys climbed really high in one of these castles and then realized at the top, oh no, we have to get down now. So that was fun. But it was a wonderful day spent with their members. And then we took a ferry, and then we took an hour-long bus ride through the island of Mull. It's about as exciting as the word Mull sounds to you. Lots of cows, lots of greenery and water. And then you took another smaller ferry to get to Iona. And the pictures that you see like of the Abbey and of whatnot, it really is just picturesque in terms of just the drab greenery that is Scotland. But it was really neat to be coming to a space of there's something really special and magical about where we're about to be. And I think at almost 38, I would experience it far differently than I did at 24. But even at 24, it felt as what they would call a thin space. And on that ferry ride from the island of Mull to Iona, you could tell all of us were very aware of what we were about to go experience. And they took us into the Abbey and were so gracious to us. It was a group of us, about 15 people. Then there was a group of seminary students from Canada. And then there was a group of high schoolers that were over there. And kind of like summer camp, they give you your room and your roommates, and it's going to throw you back to college with communal bathrooms. And it's truly just sort of, we're at adult church camp in a way. But the sanctuary space that they have is sort of like adult church camp in a cathedral, if that makes sense. And so everywhere you're going in the building felt, wow, there's something big here. There's something magical here. There's something that feels okay. And it was the point for a lot of us young adults also experiencing like, where am I in my faith journey? And how do I kind of go from being a part of a high school youth group to not really going to church to being here in a space that is a whole community. One of the neat things about Iona is that there's several members, part of the Iona community, that are all around the world. And part of being a special part of this Iona community is sort of a commitment to pray for people that come through the Abbey and spend part of every day thinking about this place and pouring into the community of this place, and including coming back to this place once a year. And those are probably some of my favorite interactions, was just speaking with people of, so you're from all the way over here and you think about this place every day and pray for the people that come through this space. And it just kind of reminded me of the world in bigger picture terms. A typical day in Iona is that you are part of the Abbey staff, so to speak. So you are assigned to a meal service. And so breakfast, lunch, or dinner, you are helping put together the meals that are simple meals with a lot of the food grown on site there. And you'll learn about the spoon of promise, which we still reference in our house to this day. It's your pudding spoon, and pudding over in Great Britain is dessert. And so they have these really just neat ways of making all the different things, such as having a meal together, exciting. And you also have chores, which we just thought was like so cool, like contributing. I had bathrooms. The coffee corner, which is wildly unfair, but if you know, Tim was immaculate the week that we were there. But it was a really neat way of helping us understand you are not just here for us to provide you with worship experience and small group study and beautiful picturesque backgrounds. You're here to be a part of something. You're here to learn from each other and grow from each other. And during the day, there's a lot of unstructured time that you can just explore the island, and the island is 6 miles.
I think just 3, maybe.
Maybe 3 miles, so you can get your steps in. But there's also just opportunities to go and experience people who live there. I personally can't imagine living there full time, but they love it and they're part of the community, and it was wonderful to get to know them. But you also, it's kind of the pinnacle is a 7-mile pilgrimage through all of the different landmarks. And they have an abbreviated version, if walking 7 miles isn't something that would be possible for you, something that you would enjoy doing. But it was a beautifully well done opportunity to really take the physical journey of getting all the way to this little tiny island in Scotland and then walking through this small space, and the moments that they have you sit and reflect kind of makes it that ultimate moment. It's the ultimate, here I am. And I just remember leaving that experience with such a grounded comfort in my faith. And I think about what came after this trip. After this trip came the Bible study group that we started with Carrie in the background. It's when the young adults really started to create a community here, because we realized on that trip, part of your faith journey isn't doing this alone. Part of our faith journey was meeting people from all around the world. Part of our faith journey was having these symbolic moments to think about in the really tough times, and having those thin spaces, and just having a week of feeling kind of on a faith cloud, so to speak. Like, it just felt, these are going to be experiences that I need to come back to. And I think in different ways, Tim and I have come back to those experiences, and what then came from the larger trip, which were some of our closest, dearest friends, some of our moments of walking through all the different journeys and chapters that all of us have had. We did get to spend a day in Edinburgh. We did get to go to the John Knox statue, and I'll take pictures with him. Stuck a little statue in there. And that was really neat as a Presbyterian. Like, we were just kind of geeking out as Presbyterians, going like, oh, it's John Knox and Mark. And that was really neat. And that was a really special moment to just sort of go, okay, this is sort of something we wouldn't typically experience. And this is surreal. And let's just really kind of take a moment and remember this. Yeah, and we also celebrated July 4th over there, which is really wild to celebrate July 4th. Tyler wore a shirt that said back-to-back World War champions. So we made sure people knew we were from America. But yeah, so that's kind of it. I'm sorry that I just feel like I rambled at you. You should go. I fully endorse it. Hope you don't get back from duty.
Well, just a little tip. We actually are not staying in the hostel that Lisa is in front. We let the young adults do that. I know Rachel has done that as well. We are actually staying in the Argyle Hotel. When I was there, they encouraged us to do that as well, so we will talk about that. Kate and Mary are going to come up and talk a little bit about how we discerned going to Scotland and the connection with our 200th anniversary.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Mary Eagle, and I have enjoyed and really honored to be on this team of putting this trip together. This pilgrimage to Scotland. I personally am a retired Spanish teacher, teaching Spanish to pre-K through AP Spanish in high school. Through my many years of teaching, it's been just as important to teach and learn different cultures. That's why I've always, every year, had a part in my teaching of studying the culture of the different countries where Spanish is spoken. Studying, respecting, and appreciating all different cultures is crucial for countries and peoples to get along. Personally, I love travel. I've done extensive travel, Canada, the Dominican Republic, Costa Rica, Bolivia, Canada, England, France, Luxembourg, Belgium, Spain, Germany, Austria, and Hungary. Whew. This is my first trip to Scotland, though, which I'm so excited to see where my Presbyterian family began. Why Scotland, you may ask? Well, in 1560, Scotland broke with the Roman papacy for Protestant reform. They had had enough of papacy. In 1690, the General Assembly met and rejected the Episcopal Church that had been forced on them by the Stuart family, the Stuart kings, leading the final settlement of the Reformed Scottish Church as Presbyterian. It's the home of many of our Scottish Presbyterian ancestors, and it's the country where the Scottish Presbyterian Church began. Now, this is a pilgrimage. This is sort of what Donna talked about. This is a pilgrimage, not a mission trip, not a touring trip. So what's the difference? A mission trip is an organized community service effort done by Christians and churches, usually it can last anywhere from a day to a week to longer than that. A tour is a journey for pleasure in which several different places are visited. A pilgrimage, however, is a journey to a sacred place. People make pilgrimages to places like Jerusalem, Bethlehem, or Santiago de Compostela in Spain as part of their religious or spiritual practice. A pilgrimage is often a spiritual journey. Typically, it's a journey to a shrine or another location of importance to a person's belief and faith. Our pilgrimage to Scotland will be of moral, spiritual, and historic significance for hopefully everyone on the trip. Pilgrimages are for different reasons. For some, the experience has religious significance, but for others, it's about finding some quality time to think, meditate, and breathe. Heal and discover oneself during a simple walk or a visit. For many, it's a combination of the above. For us, it will be all of the above, as well as witnessing where the Scottish Presbyterian Church began during the Reformation. We could do a virtual pilgrimage online on our computers to Scotland, but we would miss the reality and actualization of seeing, just to name a few places, such as Iona, that Lisa mentioned, and the monastery that St. Columba built when he brought Christianity to Scotland in the year 563. That sort of gives you the range of time between then and now. Govan Old Parish Church, the Old Parish Church serving Govan in Glasgow from the 5th or 6th century AD until 2007. Where an internationally significant collection of early medieval sculpture known as the Govan stones are housed. And that's on our itinerary. St. Andrew's University, where John Knox, viewed by many to be the founder of Presbyterianism, continued his studies, and after his graduation became a priest. St. Andrew's Cathedral, where the headquarters for the Scottish Catholic Church was headquartered before the Reformation. Holy Trinity, where Knox, considered by many, once again, to be the founder of Presbyterianism, preached his first sermon. We will also visit Edinburgh Castle, among many other places. Of course, just as important, we would also miss, via a virtual tour of Scotland, meeting the people, the local people, and getting a feel for their lives and their culture. And of course, hearing the endearing Scottish accent.
That's beautiful. It gives you a taste of what we're going to experience. I'm Kate Gillespie, and my husband and I are part of this team, and we're opening our hearts, our home, our lives to this endeavor to do this. And I'm a retired Presbyterian minister and newly moved here 2 years ago and loving every minute and FPC is making all the difference in my life and the life of our home. As we enter into the places that Lisa and Mary mentioned, it's a sacred community that we're going to be entering into, and we are going to be forming a sacred community. If you choose to go onto this trip in 2025, it will be a spiritual experience. We will enter a sacred community together long before we ever hit Edinburgh and Glasgow airports. So as we do that, how we're going to do that is to meet monthly beginning in January, maybe at our home even, where we can experience and talk about what attracts us to Scotland, what we want to learn about Scotland, what we want to experience in Scotland. As a group, preparing our part to enter this sacred community. It's a blessing to do that, and it is an interactive action of intentionally leaving our space here in the US and intentionally going far away to another world, to experience another way of being in our faith. And this is what a spiritual pilgrimage is all about, entering that sacred community. We will do that by meeting monthly and talking, and it's your trip. It's customized to what you want to do and how you want to do it. We will give the itinerary of what we will do, but the monthly meetings, we're going to be talking about what is on your heart. If you have a special thing after watching that great Braveheart movie, and you get all excited about it, or angry about it, or curious about it, we'll talk about that. We'll learn about that. And we will join together in our hearts, and every month we will gather. And then after our trip, we will have a post group where we can experience and share. All of you can share with others at First Press about the trip. So I hope that you will all choose to be able to come and join us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Kay. Tom, so we'll talk a little bit about some of those details you might be wondering about, and then Rachel will give us the itinerary.
Okay, as far as some details, let me tell you that we did not pick and choose this at random. We did get expectations. Okay. We're working with a group called the Progressive Pilgrimage. It's a group that does sponsorship and training and leadership of different pilgrimage groups for various churches. They're well vetted, they've got a lot of experience, and the woman of this couple actually was a classmate of my daughter. I didn't realize that until last week. But they are doing this for many churches, and we considered many different trips, and they helped us shape this one. In specific, where we've come down in deciding is that the travel date would be from April the 29th, which is a Tuesday, which is a fairly inexpensive travel day, and returning on Saturday the 10th. It looks at this point like we'll travel out of either Greensboro or Raleigh-Durham. It's going to come down to the cost of airfare, because we're really trying to keep this trip affordable. And right now, the way it's pricing out looks like the trip will include airfare, hotels, all the private coaches, all of the entry fees, exit fees, and touring guides and everything for approximately $6,000 a person. That may sound like a lot, but I hope you will look at other alternatives. This is about the same price as a 9-day trip, exclusive of air in a lot of cases. This is on the high end. We hope it will come up less than this, but that's based on the folks at Progressive Pilgrimage just get on airfare. The big variable is airfare. If you look at your computer today, airfare out of Raleigh-Durham is about $700. This budget was built on a $1,500 thing, saying we really don't know, so we shot high. So we hope we'll have wiggle room within the budget. The key here is, if you'll go to the next slide, is we really do want to keep mentioning, this is a pilgrimage. This is not just us sitting down seeing the cool stuff we'd like to see. For example, many of you may want to see the Loch Ness Monster and stuff like that. We're gonna ride through that area, but we're not gonna stop and go fishing or anything. There is gonna be a chance to play golf for those of all who are got that in your mind. Iona does have a golf course. It is carefully groomed by goats. It is very much a Scottish golf course, but it is not like the golf course that you might dream about on St. Andrews.
And the goats are on the golf course.
And the goats are actually there, you just gotta
Yes.
yell 4 or 5 or whatever the speed. We do have outreach to, when we talk about both Glasgow and Iona. The Iona community is headquartered for administration and music in Glasgow. For those of all who know John Bell and Wild Goose Music, that's been kind of revolutionized church music in the last 20 years. That's coming out of Glasgow now. It started on Iona. So we will also see the Edinburgh areas, and then we will do, if we go to the next page, I want them to see this map. That center line, if you see from the Isle of Mull over to St. Andrews, if you're doing your history study, that is the most historic pilgrimage route probably in the world. It's a little bit older than Compostela pilgrimage. People have been walking that trail from Iona to St. Andrews since the 6th century. We are not going to walk it. We are going to ride it. We are not going to be in youth hostels. We'll be in hotels. They're going to be, 4 stars, probably not 5 stars. So, if you want to do that, sorry, they don't exist. But and even with a name like Gillespie, they don't give you special deals and no discounts. In St. Andrews, we will be spending and at the various churches, cathedrals, and a lot of the ancient sites. And then when we go on down into Edinburgh, there will be plenty of time. As we looked at the itinerary, one of the goals was to give you, as a traveler pilgrim, time to think and experience. There's time one whole afternoon to just walk around and see the sights. There's time in Edinburgh, just walk around and do what you want to do. There will be plenty of time leading into this for educational materials. We've already started gathering a great bit of it to say, here's the history, here's places you could go if you have a particular interest in it. And throughout the trip, there's time to do as you will, including rest if you just need some downtime to just meditate and take it all in. Part of the whole challenge of the pilgrimage is to take it in with a fire hose and then process it and say, what do I really want to see out of a lot of this? And how do I react to it? With the expectation that one of the things we want to learn is, with that much history of Presbyterianism, what are they doing now? Because they're experiencing the same thing as the global church. Their churches are shrinking. Many of these churches are down to very, very small numbers, but they are changing dramatically to deal with their new realities. So we want to see what they're doing. If they were the founding place, what are they doing now? So, Rachel, we both talk about the details of their questions.
Tom, and Rachel has to scoot to worship pretty quickly, but I did want to emphasize what Tom said about the rooted and reaching. As you all know, that's our vision for the church, to be rooted in our spirituality and our history, and also reaching to the community. So Rachel will tell you, as part of the itinerary, places where we're going to stop and engage with the Church of Scotland to learn about, once again, their history, but how they're reforming and reshaping to be more involved in the community. And so that's a big piece of what we're hoping for too.
Okay, so you see here, it's 12 days, but covers ground. I do want to say Iona's actually over here. We couldn't get Google Maps to get us that way because of all the ferries and buses and all of that. So you're covering a lot of ground and really getting to see central Scotland, or a good taste of it in 12 days. So. Okay, so the flights would be out of either Greensboro or Raleigh and going into Edinburgh. And in Edinburgh, it's about an hour on the bus, so it's probably quick for a private coach to get from Edinburgh to Glasgow. So essentially, the first couple of days you're in Glasgow, a little slower just to acclimate to the time change. It's about 5 to 6 hours, depending on when daylight savings time hits. These are just some photos of Glasgow. So Glasgow's got a lot of history as well. Glasgow Cathedral here. Cathedral, so it used to be Catholic, then of course became Presbyterian along the way. It's already been mentioned, visiting the Iona community, visiting the old Government Church there, and then really just exploring Glasgow's. And some would say Edinburgh is the posh city, and Glasgow is the people's city. So Glasgow's motto is "People make Glasgow." The people are wonderful. It is an older industrial sort of city. So you'll get to be there for a year, and this is I was there for a year, you'll get to be there for a couple of days. It's wonderful people and a beautiful place to explore.
One thing for you all to know too, Rachel, she said, was in Glasgow. They identify for the Yabs what they call priority churches. So the churches that are in the most need are where the Yabs are placed. So Rachel was in Glasgow and Victoria was in Dundee, and that's why we're going to Dundee. So y'all, that's where the YAB program is based right now.
Yeah, the YAB program is for students 18 to 28 or 30. Basically spending a year in Scotland, you're working in churches in these materially poor areas. Of the 60 or so materially poor areas in Scotland, Glasgow's got about half. So you'll see it is a city that was really struck. It was an industrial point of flourishing, and then an industry moved elsewhere. You kind of see some of that material poverty if you go to the outskirts where we were. But it's really growing and becoming more of a center for the arts, which is really neat. And that's happened, I guess I was there 8 years ago. So it's happened in the past 10 or 15 years. It's flourishing more. So then Iona, which you've heard wonderful things about, we will be staying in a hotel, no tours. It is art. No,
We thought about it, get the golf there.
we're thankful for a hotel. Yeah, so it's truly a thin place. The legend goes Columba was they first in Ireland, and so this was the farthest you could go, be out of the sight of the Irish, and then it kind of became a place of learning, a place of training for monks who then went around Europe and really helped spread the faith. And so Iona was really a center piece of the faith, 500s or so. It's been rebuilt and renovated, but it is a small island where you spend about 3 days there. So it takes about half a day to get there. And so much of it is the journey. And the journey and getting there kind of prepares you for this place. And then you spend a few days on this place, and there's morning and evening worship year round, as far as I know, and y'all join in that several times. There's folks around the world, like Lisa said, come to worship there. We're going to keep going quickly so we can get questions. So Dundee is where Victoria Alexander spent her gap year. And so she was with, there are 4 of them also working in different churches there. So Dundee would be a place where there'd be more connection probably to the local church there. Victoria hopes to go on the trip and hopes to be able to visit the church that she worked at, Century Parish Church, and for y'all to visit as well and just to hear the stories. So as Donna noted, the Church of Scotland was the source of Presbyterianism, but the UK and Europe is far more secular than we are, at least in the South. So the church is struggling, but it's learning how to revision. And so some of that looks like creative ministries, social enterprises, different things, and you'll be able to visit a couple of those. So we'll be in Dundee about a day. This part is still a little loose. So working a little more time in Dundee and just seeing the people there, getting to meet people that Victoria knows. This is Dundee, this is St. Andrews, which you all probably have heard about, at least for the golf course. But there's a lot of history there as well. And then on the ride back from Iona to Dundee, as part of the journey, y'all will stop in Steep Glen, which is this beautiful mountainside. And so that would be hoping to split up the journey a little bit. To Edinburgh is the posh city. It's the one where the Parliament meets, full of history as well. You'll get to see some of the tourist sites, but also one of the really neat social enterprises that I loved learning about when we were there and visiting is the Grass Market Cafe. So just to give you a picture of that, there's an older church, the Greyfriars Kirk, and they were struggling, but they had land and space in a prominent place. And they knew there were a lot of folks who were experiencing homelessness, but had a hard time getting jobs. So they created a space where they had a cafe and they started training people. I forget which order it started in, but now there's a lot of different ministries there. So there's a cafe where they train folks, folks serve, and then the hope is that they can then go and get jobs elsewhere. There's also a woodworking shop there, and they take old pews. So a lot of the churches, big disagreement, but churches that'll take pews out of their sanctuary to make the space more usable. And then the woodwork shop takes these pews from around the UK, strips them down, makes new things, and then gives those back to churches or sells them for a profit. And so again, that's another part of job training. They've got a theater there where folks can learn some acting. So just a really neat ministry that looks at how do we support people, and not just giving them something, but how do we give training to help them see that they're a beloved child of God and see that they're worth to invest in and to help them grow. So one of the visits will be to that Grass Market Cafe. The Greyfriars Kirk, if you've got any Harry Potter fans, if you walk around the cemetery, you'll know that, or notice that J.K. Rowling walk around that cemetery as well. You'll see some familiar names there. Of course, John Knox, St. Giles, all of that. So it's a lot packed in. With the travel days, 12 days in total, including travel, there's probably 10 or so on the ground. But we'll keep going. So the next steps would be to email Donna if you're interested. May 1 is when registration would open. Deposit then, and then as Kate mentioned, starting in January, there'll be payments, but also starting in January, we'll have kind of a monthly gathering, just to prepare. We've got a long list of books, and whatever you're interested in, whether it's history or religion, search anything, a long list of books if you're interested in learning more between now and then, but in January would start those gatherings to really prepare. And then would of course have the post-pilgrimage reflections. And then, yeah. Okay, what questions do you all have? Yes.
Is there any flexibility on the airfare and people that want to use points for their airfare?
We will take that question to Eric. So the airfare can't be purchased until June. It has to be, I think, 11 months. Maybe it's late May, but 11 months in advance. So we'd ask him about that and whether he would know. He can just give us y'all what flights he's taking. Yes.
How big of a group are y'all looking at?
Yes. Looking at 30. And really, so the main reason that the dates are the way they are and then the size is because Iona is small. And the lodging is limited. And so we basically have hotel space for 30. And everything else is booked up, which is a good thing that it's popular. But looking at 30.
And who's our tour guide when we get there?
Yes, so Eric and Heather Doss are the ones who own and run Progressive Pilgrimage. I think their website's there. She's a Presbyterian minister, and he's got a background in history and teaching. And so they've led several pilgrimages to Scotland, also to the Holy Land and other places. And he would be, one of them would be with the group. They also organize local guides wherever you are.
And Eric just took Holy Trinity to Canterbury about 2 months ago. And as Rachel mentioned, he's, some of you that want to know, Frank always wants us to tell, Frank is on the brochure. Frank do. So if you know Frank, that's actually a joke. But Frank has been on a number of pilgrimages with Progressive Pilgrimage. He did Scotland and Ireland about 3 years ago, he and his wife Nikki. So there's that connection, as Rachel said. And if you go on their website, you'll see multiple trips they're doing. Tom's daughter's church in Burt, Virginia is going in May after us. They're doing a shorter trip, but you'll see where they're going as well. Eric, actually, I woke up this morning thinking about him and asked you to pray for him. He and Heather are actually in Tel Aviv right now with their partner churches, and they're going from there to Greece, but they'll be there all week. And I think what we just heard recently is that Heather is actually leaving the church where she is now, and she's gonna be joining Eric as full-time Progressive Pilgrimage. So they're very well known, a great group. We've enjoyed getting to know Eric too. Other questions y'all have? Yeah, Penny.
Would they be flexible enough to allow people to stay if they wanted to extend their trip someplace else?
We thought about that, and we tried to discern kind of how long we wanted to go, and so we chose to go on the upper end of 12 days. There could be some opportunity to extend to Ireland, so people might be interested in that. Of course, that would be a whole different add-on.
So I think, Penny, if your question is, like if you wanted to just fly back later than the group, I think Eric sends folks to that all the time. So it'd just be a matter of figuring out the logistics, but.
The logistics we can't work out for a group. We couldn't get you a tea time at St. Andrews and Fries. We cannot give you a week in London or a week traveling other places before or after. But those are certainly on the table, and many of you probably do that or consider it. But it's not something that we can do today for this presentation, but as we get into it, those kinds of things can be nailed down. Because certainly there may be people who want to go early or come back late. We just want to know the starting point and the stopping point so you can plan the rest of your excursion.
Another question is travel insurance available for
Yes.
unexpected life events that sometimes
Yes.
interrupt.
Yes. We'll be very conscious of that. The Progressive Travel offers insurance through Allianz. I buy my own from a different group, and we'll make those options available. You saw the date, August 1st, up here. Don't carve that in stone because that's insurance significant. We will let you know what the date is that triggers if you want to buy up an option for some of the travel coverages, but we'll make those available.
I'm gonna put a different list out. I know some of you just kind of would come in here today, but this is the list of folks who think that you're interested and you want to receive the registration information that'll go out on May 1. So I'll put this in the back. Other questions?
Whether is this about the right time to go?
Yes.
Very attractive.
Well, April, May, September, October, best prices and weather and amount of people. Summer, packed. I went in August and lots of people, even on Iona. But the Iona, we've had to change the dates multiple times because of the Iona hotel, and we actually had to lessen the number of people. The other hotel will take about 40, and the one that we're in takes 25. So even with 30, we're gonna have a little bit of extra lodging that we're working on with Eric.
It is, that could, May would be the time that I would shoot as well, having been there a year. Do bring a rain coat and bring 2 pairs of shoes, because one is probably gonna get wet. So they say they do everything, because rain is just normal, unless it's lightning. Lightning, then they might shift plans, but otherwise, just expect it to rain. Just use the rain coat as your extra layer, and you'll be good. Yeah.
I was there in August and it never rained a single day. Wow. And everybody said that was pretty miraculous. It did not rain a single day on Iona, which was awesome. I'm gonna put the list back here. Thank y'all for your interest and share the word.